today is interesting. In 2013, this project won an Innov8 award. We hadn't done anything. We had a good idea, we had a vote. And what you're going to find out today is what's going on in the Atchafalaya Basin, and it's exciting because it's long overdue. And it's something that's going to last for 100 years. We're actually building a physical base. We're actually having activities out there in a broad range of user groups. So Ben's going to walk you through that. Ben Pierce is the executive director of the Swamp Base program. He's a landscape architect by profession. We're very fortunate that at the inception of this, back in 2010, 2009, when we first got the idea, Ben was at the time trying to come back to Lafayette, trying to do something with ecology and his profession, and we had a match made in heaven. This is wonderful. The promise is remarkable, and appreciate you being here. After this, if you want to have any further discussion, we've got the breakout room reserved for right after that, so we just go out this door, take a right, and we'll be over there. And with that, Ben Pierce.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate you being here. As Gary said, we have been involved with Innov8 for a little while now. Back in 2010, this project, when it was really in its inception stages, we had a chance to present in front of a group over across the street there. And then in 2013, won an Innov8 award. Swamp Base is a national conservation and high adventure recreation program. We annually try to immerse hundreds and even thousands of scouts or young people into the Atchafalaya. And I want to kind of take a little step back and share with you guys just a little bit what our initial idea was and what our video was that we had created for our 2013 award.
Everybody remembers you got the scout with the little old lady crossing the street, doing a good turn every day, being prepared. But scouting is much more than that.
When the National Scout movement celebrated 100 years, we decided locally that not only did we want to do a major event for the Evangeline Area Council, we wanted to do something more significant than that and make a 100-year commitment to the Atchafalaya Basin.
Right now, the basin is neglected. Since we put the levees up and it's become a floodway, most people don't go there anymore. We want to make sure that people know how to use it and do use it, because if it doesn't have a constituency, we're likely to once again just ignore it and to waste it.
We have the type of wilderness adventure in our own backyard in Louisiana that is unique to the country.
And this is an opportunity for us to take over 1 million acres of one of the most remarkable high adventure areas that we have in this country. It's bigger than the Florida Everglades. And to be able to go back out and to drop by for the afternoon.
So we decided to do a high adventure trek where youth would spend 5 days kayaking 65 miles through the Atchafalaya Basin. We've developed our own Atchafalaya, a two-person kayak with storage for overnight camping gear, which is unique to the kayak industry. The first night they'll spend out on the houseboat. The second day we'll spend out in the wilderness in a tent camping environment, another 15 miles. The third and fourth day we'll end up at Outpost Island with a set of cabins. They'll do airboat rides, have cultural exhibits with tying fish nets, and they'll spend 2 days there. And then the final fifth day, they get back in the kayaks and paddle across Lake Foss Point.
This isn't restricted in what we're doing with the high adventure base to just being for scouts. The cornerstone of this basin project for us, the Swamp Base, literally is a base in the Atchafalaya Basin. It is a permanent facility that will house folks being able to go in and out, both on the treks which we sponsor for scouting and also through our youth activities and the scientific research that will be going on out there. There is no comparable facility in the basin right now, and it desperately needs it because that's the only way we're going to be able to sustain the focus on it and provide these opportunities and these experiences to all those groups.
So this was, this was 2.5 years ago, and this was simply a vision. We had not implemented any of this. The people you saw paddling were just a pilot crew of brave scouts here locally that took a chance on going out and spending 5 days in the wilderness paddling 60 miles. We wanted to see if they wouldn't just survive it, but see if they could enjoy it, have a great time out there. And to watch that video now, being back 2.5 years later, is kind of cool. I mean, we have a chance to actually implement this and show its successes. How many people in this room were scouts, Boy Scouts? Okay. How many people had someone in their family who was maybe involved with scouts? A lot more hands go up, right? Yeah. Scouting is really ingrained in America. If you don't know much about scouting here in Acadiana or across the country, there's actually about 280 offices. We here in Lafayette represent the Acadiana franchise, basically, of scouting. The 8 parishes here in South Central Louisiana. We offer 3 different types of programs. Cub Scouting, which is for young boys 6 to 10 years of age. Boy Scouting, which is for young men 11 to 18. And then Venturing, which started about 15 years ago, which is actually a co-ed program for young men and women 14 to 20 years of age. So scouting is really now becoming a lot more inclusive with the different types of ages and demographics. Back in 2010, as Gary mentioned, we started with this idea of how do we celebrate scouting. That was the centennial year for the Boy Scouts of America. We were founded in 1910. And we started looking at these different ways that scouting had been involved with America over the last 100 years. Whenever it was a major event, scouting was at the forefront. Whether it was helping with war efforts, World War I and World War II, helping to establish our national park system, helping with the poor, scouting was right there at the forefront, trying to make a difference. And so back in 2010, as we're trying to celebrate local scouting and the 100 years of scouting in this country, we had an idea of what can we do. And so we started looking at a map similar to this. This is our council boundary, the 8 parishes there, with the Atchafalaya Basin serving as our eastern boundary. And we're kind of looking at it going, well, what can we do that would really be profound, would transcend generations? And so we looked at the Atchafalaya and said, how many of our local scouts and volunteers are actively participating in this area? And we found out that only one troop of about 10 to 15 boys would monthly go out there and paddle or camp. And when you look at roughly 4,000 additional scouts, that means it was being underutilized. And we said to ourselves, let's figure out a way to get scouts more involved in our natural environment. And so we did. Now, what is the Atchafalaya? Has anybody been out there? Been out there on a tour? Been out there paddling, fishing, hunting? The Atchafalaya is the country's largest swamp at 1.4 million acres. We can say that here in Louisiana because we're not in Florida, and they might say it's the Everglades, or Georgia, they say it's the Okefenokee. They're all around roughly the same size, but since we're on our own turf here, we'll say it's the Atchafalaya. There are hundreds of bird species out there, roughly 250 migratory waterfowl that move through. It's actually a major flyway of the Mississippi River. The Atchafalaya Basin Bridge that you detest driving across is the 3rd longest bridge here in the country. It's actually the 3rd longest bridge in Louisiana as well. The other 2 are larger over in the New Orleans area. 22 million pounds of crawfish are annually harvested out there, so it's a very productive ecosystem. And it's home to what most people identify with the swamp, reptiles and amphibians, with the alligator being kind of the king species out there. So we saw this beautiful area and said, how do we connect to it? And then we realized really quickly, looking at maps, we like to look at a lot of maps as a landscape architect and planner. Maps are kind of my thing. And we looked at this right here. And if you don't know, this actually represents the Mississippi River drainage basin. 41% of the country drains into the Mississippi River and then down here into Louisiana like this big, huge funnel. And then 30% of that water actually flows from the Mississippi River into the Atchafalaya. So we are connected environmentally to almost 100 million people that live within this boundary. If something happens in Montana, it has a direct impact on us here in Louisiana. So as we're sitting there, again, to kind of talk about this centennial celebration and getting our scouts involved with the Atchafalaya, little did we know at that time when we were talking about it that we were really connected to the rest of the country and that this could be a project that really has a bigger impact than we could have ever imagined. So we started talking with volunteers and some of the locals, and we came across Michael Doucet, the Grammy-winning singer and fiddle player with Beausoleil. And he gave us this great quote back in 2010 as we're starting this idea of what this project could be. And basically, to sum it up, is a lot of the other areas of the country, their natural lands, people have a profound respect for them. They get out there and they actively participate in these areas. But what we have here in Louisiana is our swamplands. That's our iconic environment. It's all about our culture, but we don't actively get out there. There's not the same respect for the swamplands as there are for the mountains and the beaches and canyons, as he mentions in his quote. So we could do something more. We're connected to the rest of the nation with our watershed, and we can also connect to ourselves because of our heritage. So back in 2010, we made a 100-year commitment. What better way to celebrate scouting? It's previous 100 years, we're making another 100-year commitment moving forward. Also for some job security for me. That would allow me to make sure I have a job for the next 100 years. Basically what we said, and the reason I get up every morning to go to work, the reason I'm here today, is to be able to share this mission. We want to promote the importance of this swamp to basically to the Boy Scouts, to our state, to our area. We want people to understand what it is. If we don't understand and get people to go out there and actually respect it, we'll lose it. So we do that through environmental stewardship activities and recreational initiatives. And those basically come down to these 5 pillars. We set stewardship and recreation pillars out in the swamp. We want to make sure our scouts, at least right now, go out there and plant native vegetation, remove trash, and help with our wildlife. That would be our stewardship and our environmental stewardship. But we also want them to go out there and recreate, explore it, camp in this area. You can go out there and do a trash cleanup or a tree planting in one day and then go back to your home, maybe in Kaplan, Abbeville, Gaydon, anywhere out there, and you'll forget about what you saw. You actually have to go out there and spend time in order to truly create some love and respect for the area. So that's where the recreation comes in. Since 2010, our scouts have been going out every year in the late winter, early spring, and planting native trees. To date, roughly 53,000 trees have been planted on one Saturday every year. So we're getting thousands of participants and volunteers from the area to come out and help us with that. They're working with experts in the field. This guy is from the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry. We're working with DEQ, DNR, bunches of different groups that have respect for our environment and actively working and teaching our young men and young women how to be good stewards in their environment. We're also going out there and removing trash, and we do this in the fall when the water levels are low. We actually had this event this past weekend, which we call our basin sweep. We go out there and remove trash from 5 parishes out in the Atchafalaya Basin, and to date, roughly 119,000 pounds of trash have been removed from the area. When the scouts arrive out there, they see an environment that looks like this. And we have a chance to tell them a little bit about where this trash has come from. Is it just sportsmen? Is it just people who have a disrespect for their environment? Maybe, yep. But we also get to talk to them about the watershed. This trash could have come from Western New York, or Wisconsin, or any other place in between. And then you also find major trash, which is intentional, like the washing machine along the Atchafalaya River. We have an opportunity to remove that and to beautify our area and show some respect for it. So we get our scouts out there and they remove trash. These 2 shots were taken right along Interstate 10. You can see in the upper left corner, this area hadn't had trash removed from it in almost 40 years. And so they were literally digging trash out of the ground. 40,000 pounds were removed in one Saturday with the scouts out there. I mentioned these different groups that have helped us. You can see a list here. We've kind of become what we call the unifying force in the swamp. There's all these different groups here that have actively participating in it, pulling the state's dollars, trying to have their budgets completed. Well, they're fighting amongst each other. The Scouts since 2010 have really become this force in the middle that everybody wants to support. And so we've done that with all these different organizations. Senator Fred Mills, a local senator, state senator, says that there's 1 million people that love the Atchafalaya. They just all happen to hate each other because they're all competing for the same resources. Whether it's oil and gas, whether it's environmental activists, they all want that area to be successful because it's their livelihood. We're finding that we can be the central force to really pull people together and to see them support each other and have open dialogue. So you can probably work with some of these organizations and departments before. So that was kind of our conservation and our stewardship end. As we're trying to work on what the recreational component would be, we looked at our National Scouting Program. The National Office of Boy Scouts, which is in the Dallas area, operates 4 high-adventure bases. These are Philmont in New Mexico, which is a camping, backpacking, hiking program. Northern Tier in the Boundary Waters of Minnesota, where the kids spend a week paddling in those boundary waters between Minnesota and Canada. Florida Sea Base in the Florida Keys, where they go sailing, snorkeling, scuba diving. Some great stuff down there. And then just recently, the Summit, which is in West Virginia. These are basically mega camps. As you see, thousands of scouts annually attend these programs and have a chance to immerse themselves in this environment. And as we're talking about the Atchafalaya, we said, why not this environment? Look how beautiful this is. It's an amazing place. It's perfect for recreation. It's perfect for education. It's tied into so many things. Could this become a program that would be on scale with those other national high adventure bases? And we said yes, definitely could. So we looked at what could be some of these benefits. And all this information that I'm talking about right now goes back to 2012 when we first talked at Innov8, goes back to 2013 when we started talking. This is just our mindset at the time. You can see these many benefits, whether it's with the economy, whether it's fostering pride in our area. I left Louisiana after graduating college, went to North Carolina. I grew my love for Louisiana after I left. I didn't realize what I had left, and wanted to come back and do something to improve my state. You know, it's educational opportunities. There's just so much exposure that can be had that benefits our youth here locally. So back in when we first started this program and that pilot started, we developed a trail out there. How can we get this to really be an awesome recreational program? We developed a 61.6-mile trek. It starts up in St. Landry Parish, just east of Opelousas and Fort Berry at Bayou Catawba, and then 61 miles later in St. Mary Parish at a boat ramp called Miette Point. Scouts spend 5 days and 4 nights out in the swamp, recreating and learning about our environment and our culture. Now, who wouldn't want to go do that, right? That looks like a lot of fun. We start our program by getting kids that come and participate by going to Vermilionville. Best way to start this off is to introduce our culture, talk about who we are as a people, talk about how we've lived off the land, especially since these kids coming from all over the country, not just here in Acadiana, are going to be basically living off the land for the next 5 days and 4 nights. So we go to Vermilionville. They spend their first nights while we're still in the development stages for a base facility at the dorms at UL. So they get to be immersed in that environment. A lot of kids have never been on a college campus before. UL is a great opportunity, especially with the new dormitories. We go to Cypress Lake. They get to see alligators firsthand. That's a pretty cool thing. So it's a really great way to promote our local university here. One of the first things we do with them, though, after we're talking about kind of the gear that they need and the safety, is we ask them to describe the swamp in one word. So I'm going to go around the room with the big group we have here, and I'll be able to get everybody's one word. So give me one word to describe the swamp. And here's swamp. First word.
First word, sweaty.
Sweaty.
Land building.
Land building, very good. When you hear swamp, one word.
I've been there many times. I love it. It's beautiful.
Beautiful, very good. You two in the back.
Remembering.
Remembering. You hear swamp, what comes to mind?
Alligators.
Alligators.
Wet.
Wet. Okay. And I'm not. Gary's done it before. I'm not letting him cheat. So we asked these kids from literally all over the country to give us one word to describe the swamp, and we kind of figured out roughly about 80% of the words that they give us are negative about this area. So it kind of goes back to Michael Doucet's quote where he says, these canyons, these mountains, all these areas are well respected and people love them. 80% of our participants, these are paying people coming down here to recreate on this trail, think of it in a negative way. It's like, gosh, what's wrong? And they go, well, we've seen it in the movies, our parents tell us about it, the media portrays it in this negative way. We think it's full of mosquitoes, it's disease-filled, it's full of alligators, it's muddy, it's nasty, it's hot, it's humid, it's sweaty, murky, and you go, okay, you guys haven't been out there. You haven't seen it firsthand. And we tell them to remember their one word because in 5 days when they get off the trail, we're going to ask them the same question. We want to hear what they say. So that trail starts off in Indian Bayou. You heard with our earlier video, but they start off in Indian Bayou. They paddle about 19 miles their first day through the twisting and turning areas. Indian Bayou is operated by the Corps of Engineers. It's about 25,000 acres in size. And they end up arriving at houseboats. And because our program has expanded, we now have 5 houseboats that we use during the summertime over in the Henderson area of the swamp. And the scouts arrive there and we do a program called Connection to the Wetlands. Really talk about the water, talk about the wildlife. Because we have kids coming from Kansas and they don't realize that if they throw a potato chip wrapper in the street, goes in the drainage basin, connects to the Mississippi River, pollutes our environment. And we can talk about that connectivity and it really is eye-opening for them. We put them on airboats that next morning to pick up the speed. That's a pretty cool adrenaline-filled opportunity for them. They get to see it a different way. They also get to learn about that green stuff you see on the ground or on the water right there, which is water hyacinth. And we get to go over that and we talk about invasive vegetation and the impacts that we've had here on the swamp. We also, then the next day, they paddled down to Roo Island, roughly a 3.5-acre island, south of the town of Atchafalaya in St. Martin Parish. We do some primitive camping and survival training out on this island. And they spend the night hanging in jungle hammocks. These have rain flies and mosquito netting and all that good stuff. And they're able to have a comfortable experience in that environment. We also teach them about the resources of the swamp and how you can survive if you were stuck out there. The next day, they paddled down to Island Outpost. This is a 24-acre island operated by the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office. We do some really great programs out there. They have a day of rest from paddling, which allows us to do some more cultural immersion, including blowguns, which is inspired by the Chitimacha tribe of St. Mary Parish. We do an extensive fishing program as well, and we do stand-up paddle boards. When they fish, we go out there, we set jug lines and trot lines, and they pulled in some massive catfish over this last year, roughly a 30-pounder right here. Pretty awesome for the kids to be able to go out there, set lines, catch fish, cook fish. And so it's all a really cool process to kind of see that come about. Also helps us reduce our food costs because if they're catching a 30-pound catfish, I don't spend as much money on what they're eating. And then their last day, they paddled through Lake Foss Point. And people have probably been to the state park, but if you haven't been to the southern portion of the lake where the big trees are, you're missing out on really a jewel of Louisiana, and frankly, to the entire United States. There's some trees in this area that have been documented being upwards of 1,000 years in age. They were broken or hollow trees and were saved because of that. The timber companies that want to cut hollow trees are wasting time on that. And so there's these guys, I guess would be trash trees for some people, are really a treasure for us. I'd recommend anyone paddle through that area. Try to get it on a nice calm day like this though, if you can. And at the end, they arrive at Innov8 Point. This is a group from Baltimore, for instance. They arrive, and then they put their paddles up, congratulate each other, kiss the boat ramp, hug each other, celebrate a successful trip of traveling 61.6 miles through the swamp. And we get these responses from them when they're done. You know, you'll never view the swamp the same way again. And when we're talking about 80% of the people viewing it in a negative way, that's awesome for us. You know, talking about the diverse ecosystems, the people, the culture of the area. Again, this is people who don't know much about Louisiana, or if they do, they think of it in a negative way, and they get a chance to leave with a positive perception. Now, going back to those one words, we hear those negative ones. What are they when they get off? Underappreciated, majestic, beautiful. If you've been out there, they've changed, and it's like, what happened, guys? Why have your words shifted 180 degrees? Well, we had a chance to see it firsthand. It broke all of the preconceived notions that we had by seeing it out there, by being out there. In our video, back in 2013, we talked about this boat we had developed called the Atchafalaya. This is a kayak. We worked with a company out of Baton Rouge to develop a tandem boat, about 16.5 feet long. This is one of the reasons that we won an Innov8 award back in 2013. You know, hey, we had a problem. We needed a boat for these kids to paddle. Let's design our own. And we did. And it was a really great boat that we've been using for the last couple of years. But I think with any innovation, just because you think you're moving forward doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be successful. And actually, next year we are going to be moving exclusively to canoes. And it's kind of weird. You go, well, you guys have this great boat, this great idea. Well, once you implement an idea, it doesn't always work out the same way that you hope it would. When you put young boys and young women in a boat for 5 to 6 days, they have an ability to break things a lot faster than you thought. And so when you got all these cool little compartments, that would be awesome as a personal boat. When it's going down in the swamp for 5 days, over and over again, year after year, things just don't hold up like they should. So we're going back to what really is kind of like recreating the wheel and going back and just picking up a canoe. It floats great, it tracks well, very simple, very easy. Everyone understands it, and it's going to be the right thing. So when we talk about innovation, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're innovative, you're going to be successful. Sometimes you have to go back and reevaluate. So we're going to be moving back to canoes. The one thing that's been pretty cool, though, for us that we're going to move forward, no doubt, is this relationship that we've forged with a company called Insect Shield out of North Carolina. Basically, we are offering a Trek shirt to all of our participants that is long sleeve, as you see here, so it helps to block the sun. It's got a UPF of 40. It's moisture wicking, so it helps to dry quickly. But it's also treated with this stuff called insect shield. And insect shield is basically a chemical mixture that they apply to the garment, and it lasts 70 washings and will prevent mosquitoes, ticks, flies, anything like that from landing on it. Basically creates this invisible force field, and you don't have to spray DEET all over yourself. When we sold these last year, our first round, 85% of our participants purchased the shirt, just on us saying it's going to be awesome. And now that we've had people out there actually wearing them, as you can see right here, and knowing about it, we've got a really great opportunity to get these involved with, increase our numbers out there in the swamp and continue to grow our relationship with Insect Shield. So this has been really great, setting ourselves apart from different types of garments and opportunities that people have when they come down here with their clothing. So this has been great. When it comes to marketing, we've been a little bit different. Boy Scouts America is really, and the way camp's been promoted, it's pretty old-fashioned. I would imagine they're still making brochures on Word and then folding them by hand. It's just kind of one of those things, printing, on Xerox machines or whatever. We wanted to really, include the digital age into how we promote. And it's nothing groundbreaking from regular business, but in our industry, it's very much so. We actually have increased our Facebook likes to being just a small group to be the 3rd largest camp in the country. And when we talk about being only 3 years old, and we have groups like Philmont that's been around for 75 years, being 3rd is pretty amazing. What we're doing is we're showing the swamp in a different way. We're showing this environment in a way that people have never seen before, and because of that, they're very interested in following us and being a part of what we're doing. So we're really incorporated drones into our marketing. We're all flatlanders down here. I know what a sugarcane field looks like from the road, but I've never seen one from the air. The same goes with the swamp. You get some elevation, or altitude, I guess in this case, to your images, and all of a sudden you're opening it up. You're showing that vastness of this environment. I mean, I never could imagine how beautiful it looked until we got up 300 feet in the air and started snapping some pictures and video. So we're able to show that in a new way, and people are going, wow, this is really beautiful. It's not what I always thought it would be. We're also really involving the social media thing. We actually created this hashtag #BuyYouSelfies. Everybody thinks selfies, but buy you self, kind of thing. And we got to that. Kids thought it was awesome. And so they started taking selfies with our staff members or themselves and then sharing it on social media. So instead of just sitting there saying, all right, we'll take all these beautiful pictures and we'll be the ones showing it, why don't we encourage them to use their own social media that they're going to do anyway, and then have them promote the environment for us. So when people are thinking, again, 80% have a negative opinion of this area, and they snap a picture of themselves smiling and having a great time out there, people at home go, what am I missing out on? Wow, this is not the environment I thought it was. And by the way, lily pads really make great hats if you're looking to beat the heat. So that's been really successful as well. Again, changing perception of the swamp. And so we've been, again, like I said, really involved with social media. And so what we've seen basically is our social media growth equals sales growth for us. And as you can see on the top line, it goes all the way back to basically end of 2013, 2014 when we started this, our Facebook page. And you can see when we paid for boosted posts. So back in 2014, around the middle of the year, we paid for a pretty long period of time. And then just recently, we paid for another boosted post. We want to make sure we're boosting our social media activities prior to our registration to see what kind of impact it would have. And because of that, we went from roughly 1,000 followers to over 18,000 followers today. And that talks about, again, with the boosted post and showing that reach and why people are sharing, what are we doing out there? People are seeing the swamp and all these other things. And if you hear me, I'm not saying basin, by the way. I don't use the word basin. A lot of locals, and then before I started this, use basin. I never use basin because basin for me does not kind of create this imagery in someone's head when I'm talking to someone across the country. When I say swamp, all of a sudden they think of moss, they think of cypress trees, they think of the wildlife we have. But if I said basin, they're thinking of a bowl. And that doesn't really, it's not a great way of marketing my area. I want them to think of that imagery. And so again, just a quick little thing, if you're out there and you're talking to people and they're not from the area, use swamp. It's just a better way for us to promote the area. So you can see that the growth there of social media. And this ultimately is what's come on. So 2010, this would be 10 people participating in our pilot program. We started boosting back in 2014. And you can see the skyrocket that we had in participation. In 2015, we sold out with 600 participants. In 2016, this coming summer, we have sold out with roughly 950, and we have sold 60% of our participants already for 2017. This is where they're all coming from. 33 states will be represented by 2017. It's not a local program anymore. It is beyond that. And we really started to expand what this program could be by opening it up to different ideas. So if we're looking at two and a half years ago, we were just thinking about the trek. Now, come see us in 2.5 years from today. This is what we'll be involved in. We're getting the public involved with the program. K-12 students involved with the program. Universities doing research involved with our wetlands. And then involving special needs students and young men and women who don't have access to this environment. We're creating access for these people. With the universities, we're partnering with UL, with LSU, with Nichols, and other universities across the country to try to bring in these allied programs here into the Atchafalaya to improve what we have here in Louisiana. Great benefits too with internship opportunities and recruiting people into their degree programs. Annually, we anticipate having roughly 13,500 students and young people participating in swamp programs. STEM-based programs, at-risk youth programs, conservation activities as well. So we're sitting there, we've got these expanded user groups. We said, well, where can we put them? What can we do with them? We need to have a property. And we went back and we started to think about where do we want to be with a property to be able to house all these people, to be able to educate all these people. We can't do it here in Lafayette, it's not connected enough. We need to be close to the swamp. So we created a set of criteria, Tier 1 being our highest priority. We have to do wherever the property is, it has to meet these criteria. And then we went down from there and ended up identifying a site in the Atchafalaya or adjacent to it near the town of Catabula in St. Martin Parish. We found state property, roughly 450 acres, that property you see here in yellow and green and orange as well there. 450 acres that we can have a base facility in the swamp and be able to integrate all of these different user groups and have them learn more about the area. Again, the more people involved, the better chance we have of it being preserved and protected in the future. So we started off working with local architects, developing a plan. This is a sprawling idea for what a campus could be with a welcome center, dining, lodging, classrooms, trails, even had a splash pad and treetop canopy zipline course in there. And then getting out of the property, you realize not all that's going to work. You're still developing in a wetland environment, so we make sure we have all our buildings going up. We kind of liken it to what we call, now the Star Wars are coming back again, an Ewok village. Everything's elevated, you got boardwalks, tree houses, all that kind of cool stuff. So we're actually getting up into the canopies and getting off of the water so we're not impacting the wetlands. So that's how we're going to be moving forward as we continue to develop the site. And we've been working with the state on this project since its inception. The state has helped us with getting a lease out on the property. We have not signed that lease. It's been a year. So there's some trials and tribulations of working with the state. You get the go-ahead, and then it just takes a long time. Working to establish a cooperative endeavor agreement with them so we can get some capital dollars to help us out. But we've also worked with the state and had them help us with liability. If we want to be able to get kids out there, it's a dangerous environment. We need to limit our liability in order to be able to get them out there. And so they've worked with us on those type of opportunities as well. It's kind of a back and forth with the state. If you ever work with the state, it can be very good one day, it can be slow the next day. It's never really necessarily bad. Ultimately, the project, when you look at that facility, is going to be $42 million. This is a huge undertaking on something that's out there, but it's really important to be a home for this environment. There's no home for the Atchafalaya. There's nowhere for people to gather and to talk about it and share their passions or share their differences about its future. We want to do that, and it's going to cost us roughly $42 million to do so. $32 million in buildings, $8 million to endow it, make sure it stays in top shape, and $2 million in equipment. So 2.5 years ago, we were here with a vision. This is the reasons why we continue to innovate. We want to make sure that we connect with the Atchafalaya Swamp. Our scouts weren't connected with it. We need to make sure we get them engaged in it. We want to create a constituency for the swamp. We got to have people who love it, otherwise it'll die. We want to change the perceptions of our area. People in Louisiana, I promise you, don't think of Louisiana in a positive way. We're low in the literacy. We're high in the obesity. I mean, people think of us in a way that is not necessarily something that we want to see or how we see ourselves. we have the opportunity to show them the real deal of what it's like to live in this amazing state. We want to expand access. It's not just scouts who can go out there because they recreate all the time. We want people in this room to be able to go out there and enjoy the environment. We want to continue to be that unifying force. If we're going to be able to have that kind of impact, we can make some serious changes out there. This program ultimately was created to support local scouting. We want to continue to do that. By bringing in dollars from out of our state, we can help support local scouts here and young men and women in our area to be better people and better citizens in our communities. We want to benefit those organizations beyond scouting, talking about special needs organizations, talking about K-12 programs. We want to make sure that they have an opportunity. Obviously, we need to stay competitive with youth activities like soccer and baseball and dance and all these other things. If we want them to enjoy our environment, we got to make sure that we show a really cool program. Ultimately, we're tied to our environment and our culture, so we got to make sure that we maintain that. And then frankly, when it comes down to it, it's our responsibility as citizens of this area, with it being adjacent to our communities, to take care of it. And that's why we continue to innovate. And I guess just to leave you guys with a little bit here of how you can maybe get involved and help us with this program. Again, $42 million. We don't anticipate somebody coming in here and saying, here's $42 million check. We might like that, but it's not going to happen. Help us with making a financial investment, no matter how big or how small. Provide in-kind services. You have a boat, we're doing a trash cleanup, help us with that. Drive your boat, help us pick up some trash. Help staff during the summertime. We're always looking for staff members. This coming summer, we have 41 young men and women from across the country that are going to come out there and run our program for us. Help recruit future staff members. Hey, you might have somebody in your neighborhood or in your class that would be perfect for this. Tell them to apply online. You can always join one of our committees. Help us with our program. Help us with our capital campaign. And then just spread the word that you've heard about this. We're still so new, and Acadiana doesn't necessarily know all about what we're doing. But help spread the word in a positive way. And I just want to leave you with this last quote from Lord Baden-Powell. He was the founder of Scouting in England. And his quote was, "For those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, the swamp is at once a laboratory, a club, and a temple." I really appreciate your time. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the 2 minutes we probably have. We also have a breakout session across the hall if you have any other questions. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here again. Thank you. Any questions? Yes?
Yeah, I'm a wetland restoration scientist, so I can't commend you enough for just getting people out there to see how awesome it is.
Thank you.
I hear the same thing, like it's gross, it's scary, people want to develop it. And I think that's a great first step to get people out there to just appreciate it and be in it. But I was wondering if part of your pillars was stewardship and recreation, have you ever considered maybe for your older scouts a policy lesson? Because it's one thing to appreciate it and like know that you can go plant trees, but it's another thing to get educated on who's actually controlling what we do with the swamp and maybe writing letters to petition.
We have tried to stay out of politics at this point.
Okay.
Right? Because we're still so new. We realize that there are a lot of those different organizations that are kind of fighting against each other. We know that we can do those pillars without people necessarily arguing against them. When we plant trees, we're planting on public lands. When we pick up trash, we're picking up trash from public lands. At this point, until we're established, we don't want to have that voice when it comes to this organization doing this and that organization doing that. We want to make sure that we have friends on all sides in order to see the mission succeed. We feel if we start to polarize ourselves, we'll lose out on half the people that are out there. And I mean, it's a fractured environment. You've got private interests, you've got public interests. I mean, something like 60 or even almost 70% of it is privately owned. So we want to make sure that at this point we stay inclusive to everyone that we can. And then maybe in the future, if we need to, then we'll have a voice in some of those. And I think we'll have a positive voice for its future. But we'll also be pretty decisive on our opinions as well.
You hope the kids would make good connections when they're older.
Right. Exactly. Well, one of the things we want to make sure we do too is to let them know that there is competing interest out there. And that's okay to have property rights, and it's okay to have public access rights as well. So we're teaching them how to respectfully use the land.